Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with early test stories. I never imagined that a casual afternoon chat with my neighbor's husband would change the way I saw everything. It started like any other day mundane routine remarkable. I had just finished my errands, carrying a grocery bag in one hand and fumbling for my keys with the other, when I heard someone call my nominee. I turned to see Mark, my neighbor's husband, standing on their porch. He was holding a cup of coffee, his fists thoughtful, almost troubled. "Hey, Mark," I greeted with a pallid smile. "Everything all right?" He hesitated for a second before offering a small, tight-lipped smile. "Yeah, just thinking you got Aminute, had always liked." Mark, he was quiet, but always the type to offer a hand with heavy bags or to shovel the snow off my walkway in winter without buying his wife. Linda and I were friendly but not particularly close, polite, wave-sort conversations about the weather. Usual me borlibly history. I glanced at my watch. I had planned to make some tea and unwind, but something about his expression made Madame pause. "Sure," I said, stepping closer. "What's in your mind?" He exhaled, rubbing a hand over his jaw. "I don't even know how to say this, but I think you need talk now." A strange chill crept up my spinino. What? Mark looked around as if checking to make sure no one else was with an airship. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "It's about Blinda. Istefan is something wrong." He gave a short, humorless chuckle. "That depends on how you look at it." He gestured toward the small patio set on his porch. "Can was it curiosity and a growing unease kept him from declining?" I set my groceries down beside me feet and took a seat across from him. The worst TM autumn breeze stirred the leaves on the pavement, filling the quiet space between us. Mark took a slow sip of his coffee before finally speaking. "Elaine, has Linda ever mentioned anything strange about me?" The question caught me off guard. I frowned. No, why would she? Have nodded as if he had expected my answer. "That's what I thought." He set his cup down and like his finger stagger. "We've been married for 23 years, San, and all that time I thought we were happy. I thought she loved me." The way hesitant, the past tense, sent a shiver through me. "I'm sure she does," I offered hesitantly. Mark let out a heavy breath. "Used to think so too, but a few weeks ago I found something." His voice wavered. "Messages from someone she's been seeing behind my back for years." I felt must match drip. I started, but I didn't know what to say. What could I say? Mark's eyes were full of pain, but there was something else there, to resignation at. I confronted her. She didn't even deny it, just said it was complicated and that I wouldn't understand. He gave a bitter chuckle, like I was some fool who hadn't already pieced it together. Shook my head. "Mark, I'm so sorry." Looked at me, then really looked at me, and I saw something unexpected in his expression. Relief, like finally saying the words out loud, had lifted a weight off his chest. "You're the only person." I felt I could tell he admitted, "You've always been kind," and I didn't want to burden my kids with this, but I couldn't just sit with it anymore. I swallowed hard. Unsure of how to respond, I had known Linda for years. She had always seemed devoted to Mark, affectionate, doting even, but now looking back, I wondered had I missed something. The distant looks, the way she so many times brushed off his affection, the subtle but unmistakable tension I had occasionally sensed between them. "Do you know who it is?" I asked quietly. Mark nodded, jaw tightening. "I do. That's what makes it worse." I waited, me heart pounding. "It's someone we both know, Samine, who's been in our lives for years." I could feel the blood draining from my face. "Who?" whispered Mark, hesitated, his fingers tightening around his cup. Then, with a sigh, he said the name, and suddenly the world tilted beneath me. I stared at Mark, my breath caught somewhere between disbelief and shock. The name he had just uttered rang in my ears like an echo. I couldn't skate. No, it couldn't be Mark. "Are you sure?" My voice barely came out above a whisper. His eyes, weary and full of something raw, met mine. I wish I wasn't. I felt my fingers tighten around the edge of the chair, my knuckles whitening. The name he had spoken belonged to someone. I knew someone. I had trusted, someone who had been in my home, had laughed with me, who had shared months of my life without me ever realizing what was happening beneath the surface. The betrayal burned like ice in me veins. How did you find out? I asked, my voice steadier now, but my heart still pounding. Mark let out a slow, measured breath, staring down at his hands. I found an old phone, one Linda must have forgotten she even had. It was tucked away in the back of her closet, buried under piles of scarves and sweaters. When I turned it on, messages were stealthier, his fingers curled into a fist year's worth of them, so explicit, some filled with promised plan secrets. I swallowed hard. I read of everything, Heck continued at first. I told myself maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it wasn't what I thought, but the more I read, the less. She's been seeing him for over 6 years. She's jaw clenched 6 years, Elaine, and the worst part. He's married too. I closed my eyes for a moment, my stomach twisting painfully. Does his wife know? Mark hesitated. No, not yet. He exhaled sharply. I don't know how to tell her. I don't even know if I should, but I had to tell Samin, and his voice wavered. I didn't want to be alone in this. My heart clenched at the vulnerability in his words. I'm so sorry, Mark, I said again. It felt inadequate. For a long moment, we just sat there in silence, the weight of the revelation settling between us like an invisible force pressing down on our shoulders. Then finally, I asked, what are you going to do, Mark? Let out a bitter laugh. That's the question, isn't it? He ran a hand through his hair, making it even messier. Then before I don't know, though, I confront him. Do I walk away? Do I tell his wife? I've been running every possibility in my head, but nothing feels right. I hesitated, my thoughts whirling. Maybe you should talk to Linda again, see what she has to say, Mabe. She'd finally be honest with you, lips twisted into a sad smile. Honesty, I don't think she even knows what that means anymore. I bit my lip. And what about you? What do you want? He looked down, then his gaze heavy. I don't know, thoroughness in his voice sent another chill through me I had never seen him like a fist before, so lost, so broken. Mark had always been the quiet, steady type, reliable Dindle. Seeing him unravel like this made something tighten in my chest instinctively. I reached across the small patio table and covered his hand with mine. You don't have to figure it all out today, I said softly. Just take it one step at a time. His fingers curled slightly under mine, his warmth grounding me. I appreciate that, Elaine, he murmured. For a moment, neither of us moved. The street around us remained quiet, fagled in afternoon light stretching. Long shadows across the pavement. Then, as if remembering himself, Mark cleared his throat and gently pulled his hand away. I should probably head inside. I don't want Linda to come home and start asking questions. I nodded, though. Something in me felt reluctant to let the conversation end. If you ever need to talk, you know where to find me. A small, grateful smile flickered across his face. Thank you. I picked up my grocery bee and stood, feeling the weight of the moment still pressing down on me as I turned to walk back to my house. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something far more complicated than either of us realized, because as much as I wanted to believe this was just about Linda's betrayal, there was something else lingering in the air between Mark and Mesmi Thinganspan. And I wasn't sure I was ready to face what it meant that night. I barely slept. I tossed and turned, Mark's words looping in my mind like a song I couldn't turn off. 6 years. The weight of that number sat heavy in my chest. How had Linda managed to keep something like this a secret for so long? And who was this other man? This married man who had been living a double life, just like Harry should have left it alone. It wasn't my marriage, my betrayal, my problem, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was already too deep in this, and maybe, just maybe, a part of me wasn't ready to step away from Mark just yet. By morning, I knew I had to talk to Linda. She and he had been friendly neighbors for years, sharing casual conversations about recipes, garden pests, and weekend plants, but now, knowing what I knew, I couldn't tread in. Nothing had changed. I spotted her outside just before noon, watering her front lawn, as if her world wasn't on the verge of collapse. The audacity of it made me stomach, and taking a deep breath, I walked over. Morning, Linda, I called, keeping my voice even. She turned flashing me her usual warm smile. Ellen, good morning. How are you? I studied her, searching for any flicker of guilt in her expression. Nothing. She looked calm, 80s, like she wasn't hiding a 6-year affair from her husband. I hesitated, then decided to. Cut straight to it. I saw Mark yesterday. Her smile faltered, but just for a split second. Oh, how's he doing? I crushed. Miriam's not great, Linda. He found thigh foam salons. The color drained slightly from her face, but she quickly recovered, setting down the garden hose. I see. That's all you have to say. I skipped me voice sharper than intended. She sighed, rubbing her temples. The lane. This is complicated. I let out a dry law. You've been lying to him for 6 years. Linda, what part of that isn't clear? She exhaled. Looking tired. Look, I didn't come outside expecting to have this conversation with you. Well, maybe you should have expected it. I shot back. You're my friend, Linda, a rat. At least I thought you were. And Mark is completely shattered. He doesn't know what to. She flinched at that, her gaze shifting downward. I never meant to hurt him. Iskoff, that's what people always say when they get caught. Linda's lips pressed into a thin line, but then just as I was about to turn away or shoulder slumped, I know she admitted quietly. I blinked. I hadn't expected her to actually agree with me. She ran a hand through her hair, her confidence cracking for the first time. I know I'm a terrible person for this. I know what I did was wrong. And before you asked me, why, just know that it wasn't because I didn't love Mark. I did. I still do. I frowned then we because I felt invisible, she said, suddenly looking up at me with eyes full of something painful. Mark is a good man. He's patient, steady, but somewhere along the way I stopped feeling like I existed in my own marriage. It was like I was just going through all the motions, and then he came along, my stomach twisted. Who is he? Linda hesitated. Elaine. I can't. What was he, Linda? I pressed. She looked away, jaw tightening. It doesn't matter. It does matter, I snapped, because whoever he is, he has a wife who probably has no idea what's been happening. Linda swallowed hard, but said nothing. A tense silence stretched between us before I let out a slow breath, forcing myself to calm down. Mark is breaking, Linda. He deserves to hear this from you, not just from them massages on an old phone. Her eyes hammered for a moment as if she might cry, but then she blinked rapidly and straightened her shoulders. I'll talk to him, she said finally. I studied her, searching for any sign that she actually meant it. Promising, I said quietly. She nodded. I promise. I wanted to believe her, but as I turned and walked back toward my house, a nagging feeling in my gut told me this wasn't over, not even close. I barely made it inside my house before my phone bus. Mark. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen I had just confronted. Linda, was he calling to tell me she had already spoken to him? Had she kept her promise? I exhaled and answered Mark. His voice was raw, strained. Elaine, I need to see you, please. Something in his tone sent echo through me. Where are you? Home? A pause, then softer. Can you come over? I didn't hesitate. I'm on my way. When I arrived, the front door was slightly ajar. A wave of unease crept over me as I stepped inside. Mark was in the living room, sitting on the couch, his elbows resting in his knees. In his hands, he held Linda's phone, the same one that had started all of this. He looked up at me, his eyes hollow. She's gone. My heart skipped. What you mean gone? He let out a bitter laugh. I mean, she packed a bag and left. No explanation, no conversation, just gone. I sank onto the chair across from him, trying to process his words. Did she say anything at all? He stared at the phone and Hishin's text. That's all I got. She said she was sorry that she couldn't face me, that it was easier this way. My stomach turned. I had told her to talk to him, to face what she had done, and instead she had drawn. I clenched my fist. That's not fair, though. You, Mark. He smiled. But it wasn't a happy one. Fair. None of this has been fair, Elaine. I swallowed, unsure of what to say. Silence filled the space between us, Shivi, with unspoken emotions. Then, after a long moment, he exhaled and leaned back. Do you know who is? My heart pounded. No, she wouldn't tell me. Mark nodded slowly, as if he had expected that I figured it out. I sat up straighter when he tapped the phone. I went through more of the messages, and then I called him. Number one, she had texted just a few days ago. I held my breath. And Mark's jaw tightened whilst my brother's stunned silence fell between us. I felt the blood drain from my facier brother. He nodded, stiffly grayed. I had met Greg a handful of times. Charming, successful, always the center of attention at family gatherings. He was married too with kids. I shook my head, unable to comprehend it, Mark. I don't even know what to say, Hella, but there was no humor in it, neither do I. For a long time, we just sat there. Two people caught in the wreckage of something neither of us had seen coming. Finally, Mark sighed. I don't know what happens next. I didn't know if she'll come back or if even want her to. I reached out, placing my hand over his. You don't have to figure it all out tonight. He looked at me and really looked at me, and then that meant something between us shifted. It was subtle, unspoken, but I felt it, a connection, a quiet understanding, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something neither of us had expected.